Rain of Troy Hotline.
Alicia, Michael, what's going on?
We know you have takes. We have takes.
I'm actually surprised that your rant line, rave line, whatever, isn't completely full.
Why can't we just win a game?
Can I blame Michael Castillo for this?
Can I blame Bob Connolly for this?
Could I put on a zebra shirt and just go out there?
Scratch, claw, up against the wall. Can't explain it what I'm feeling right now, guys. I can't believe it. Let's open up that race line. Woohoo!
Oh, I can't believe USC has hired Lincoln Riley. Oh, yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rant Line Radio, episode 499, coming to you on Monday, August 28th. We're going to look back at USC's 56-28 win over the San Jose State Spartans. All that and more on this episode, including the Rant Line. We're going to open up the mailbag and so much more. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at RantOfTroy, like us on Facebook, facebook.com/RantOfTroy. Our email address is rantoftroy@fansire.com. Phone number 818-643-7227. Suck it, What's Brewing Show. That's just for you, Jake. And I'm your host, Mark Castillo, journalist in the Rant Line studio in Los Angeles with my co-host, Alicia Derritola.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. We are back. We are back for another episode of Rant Line Radio, the first recap episode of the season. I'm super excited for this because we get to unveil the Rant Line in a few minutes. We haven't done that in a long time.
It has been a while. It's back. We're ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Big shout out to everybody joining us live on YouTube in the chats. We've got Ernesto, Tim, Fighting on MC, Ramamurti, Dan. We've Trinice here. A bunch of people are here. Ramamurti says, "What's the plan to celebrate episode 500?" Of course, this is 599. I don't think there is one because it's not really episode 500. It's the 500th full episode, mainline episode. But it's not like our 500th recording. But I don't know. We can do something.
You know what we should do? We should have people call into the Rant Line and just let us know what 500 episodes of Rant Line Radio has meant to them.
There you go. Yeah, if it means something to you, call us 818-643-7227. Call into the Rant Line and we'll do that. By the way, you know it means a lot to us. I know that Rant Line might mean something to you, but what does it mean to us? Reviews mean a lot to us. And we got a bunch of reviews last week. Let's start with 5 stars we got from He Hate B. It says, "Love the podcast, Fight On. Great podcast for all SC football news and analysis. Love the random food takes. Although Michael is crazy with his food can't be touching other food on the plate thing. Great listen and great content. Fight on." It's not crazy. It's just smart. It's the reason the kids do it too, because kids are conceptually there. I would say. 5 stars from Nevada, USC. "Rot keeps me in USC country. I live in North Lake Tahoe, which is not exactly in the heart of USC country, despite there being many alums that call Tahoe home. Rant Line prepares me for the season, primes me for game week, and helps me recap after the game. Love the show, and I'm looking forward to hopefully a very special football season. Fight on." 5 stars from I'm Here So I Don't Get Fined. "Rot is awesome. I love this podcast with Mike and Alicia. Fight on and bring on more Avatar-length shows like the season preview I just finished. I swear it was light outside when it started. LOL."
I mean, that has been our specialty in the past. We have been known to do 2.5, pushing 3-hour shows. So, when we can, when it's possible, we love it.
That's what we do. And last one is 5 stars from Eastside Soul. It says, "Really good. I love Michael and Alicia's fun and informative energy. The CarCast is clutch. Takes are fun and sometimes spicy."
Only spicy to the level that Michael and I can handle spiciness, which is very low.
Yeah, I'm dabbling with some spice. I just recently put cayenne in things.
In a pot of beans,
Yeah,
and it was too spicy for you and me.
It was a little on the spicy side, but like
here's I think I have found a new way to describe to people what level of spice is my limit. Chipotle beans are too spicy for me.
Yeah. Whereas I like Chipotle beans, but it's definitely like burning my lips. It's the peak possible thing for me, for sure. 100%. All right. You know what else is spicy? Joining us with our friends over at DraftKings. Of course, this episode is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings, we love DraftKings because they are helping us with a bonus bets offer for all of our listeners. Where is it? I can't find it. It vanished. Where did it go? 1 second.
It's okay. Here's some inside baseball here. We have different rundowns for each type of show that we have. So we've been living in our off-season regular episode rundown, and this is the first game Fallout episode rundown that we've had to do, and it doesn't have all of the updated information on there.
But I found it.
Okay.
And audio listeners are never going to notice this.
Never going to know this. This is the spiciness that you come to YouTube
on
live
YouTube.
To hear.
Yeah, exactly. Because USC fans, have you signed up for DraftKings yet? If you're a new user, you can receive $150 in bonus bets instantly after following just 3 steps. Create an account, deposit, and then wager $5 on any sport. Whether your first wager wins or loses, you'll still receive the $150 in bonus bets. All you have to do is use the code Reign of Troy, all one word, when you sign up. The best part is using our code Reign of Troy not only gets you the bonus, but also supports the podcast. If you're considering signing up for DraftKings, definitely use our code Reign of Troy to maximize those first bets. The offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly and check the episode description for the full terms of the offer.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. So big shout out to DraftKings for supporting us, which allows us to do things like running down the rant line. Alicia, the rant line is back. You guys called in. You guys, the Rot Bots, called in. Here's what you guys had to say after USC's after and during USC's 56-28 win over San Jose State on Saturday.
Rant Troy Radio. What's up? This is Dave from Orange County.
Hi, guys. Trinice from the West Side.
Hey, Rant of Troy. It's Dan from Valley Village.
Michael on the 563.
Darlene from Grand Terrace.
Hey, Rant of Troy. This is L.A. Fred. Can we first take a moment's pause to give thanks for the return of the Rant Line, or as more often last year and hopefully throughout this year, the Rave Line? I missed it last year.
So freaking pumped to be calling in for the first time in what feels like forever.
Just calling to say awesome win. I loved it. It was fun. I was there with my son. We had a great time. It was very hot. But, I found myself laughing a little bit because my kid's almost 7, and if you know kids, they have no filter. And he was in the stands pretty much summarizing our team like this. Offense good, defense bad. Literally his words. And I was like, that is very astute.
This is exactly the reason why so many Rotbots are ecstatic about the Rant Line coming back, because we get to call at halftime a little inebriated, a lot pissed off, so disappointed. We want to call for people's heads.
I wish I was calling in to rave, but I'm actually calling in to rant.
Great win, but what's worse, Lincoln Riley's assessment of a defensive coordinator or Alex Grinch as a defensive coordinator?
It's freaking San Jose State. I don't want to go so far as to say that we're struggling with them, but we're certainly not waxing them.
They didn't fix their issues. They didn't solve any problems. We got defensive left and right. This is just ridiculous stuff.
What the hell was that at the end of the first half? Not only does Caleb screw up, the defense must have been expecting a field goal attempt and let the guy get behind him.
I was just hoping that they would make a play. So I was more or less biting my nails because I was like, don't screw this up. Please, Please do something well.
We're blitzing on 3rd and 28. Like, is this freaking amateur hour? Are we playing Madden with children? Like, what is this?
Not the level that we need to be. We want better. We want playoffs this year. And Grinch, you need to step up your game. You need to get these guys in order.
This very distinctly reminded me of Mark Few tinkering with his lineup, tinkering with things in the non-conference sort of games that are just like very winnable for you, and you're just trying to sort out what to make of your team, which was very kind of frustrating to watch because these games count, and they were kind of playing it like this is scrimmage, preseason type thing, which is a little bit frustrating. The offense took a while to get going.
I want to focus for a second on the positive. We got to see plenty of new guys getting their first playing time with USC. There was a big rotation of guys used on both sides of the ball, which is only going to help further the development depth that we're going to need as the season progresses. Now, it's clear to everybody that they can see this roster is getting better, as there are some serious dudes on it now.
Zachariah Brandt. Yo.
Woo! That Zachariah Branch is electric.
It's like Ben Franklin flying his darn kite out there on the field. He is electricity personified.
The kid is different. He is a playmaker. He is like that.
Is that guy fun to watch run with a ball in his hands?
So fun. I hope teams still kick to him for the next couple weeks.
Caleb was Caleb. You know, he got the magical stuff that goes on with this big 70-yard plus touchdown. Oops, kind of dropped the ball because of whatever, and then somehow find a way to make a touchdown. So it's always fun to watch that guy play, and I'm going to try to cherish as much as his season that we can this year, because this is truly a special thing that we get to watch with USC football.
Caleb just doing Caleb. Great to see.
Now, sure, we all saw things that need to get worked on, things that need to get cleaned up. But can we all just enjoy being 1-0? Isn't this a heck of a lot better than how things were under the Helton regime? I know I have a lot more fun watching the games with Lincoln Riley and his staff.
That's what it's like to be a USC fan in 2023, and we're just glad that Brandon Troy is there to celebrate it and embrace our craziness throughout the season. So to all the Rotbots out there, win number 1. Let's keep on going.
Have a great week and fight on, everybody.
Fight on.
Fight on.
Fight out.
Fight on.
Fight on.
Fight on. Go Trojans.
Beat the Wolfpack.
There we go. The Rant Line is back. Big shout out to everybody who got in a call. As always, you can get into your calls for next week. USC and Nevada playing on Saturday afternoon. 818-643-7227 is the phone number. Alicia, what was your thoughts?
I love the Rant Line. I love the Route Bots. I think they said it all. We always get some really good analysis from people, and then we always get to just like funny lines from people, and it's just the mix there is just wonderful. So thank you to everybody who called in, because it's generally one of my favorite things about like a Monday is, and that was my first listen through on that. And usually it is. Sometimes I get a preview of it, but a lot of times it's just my first time listening and enjoying it right there with everybody as well.
Yeah, the artist formerly known as Jabroni Jabber Brody in the chat says, sign up that kid, Dan's kid. That's better analysis than most of the people on ESPN. Exquisite is astute way of putting it, just as Dan from Valley Village mentioned. Again, 818-643-7227 is the phone number. We'll be sure to throw that in the podcast description as well as we go forward, so you can grab it there, save it into your phone, and call in the middle of the Nevada game, after the Nevada game, whatever. You can also call in the middle of the week and ask questions for the mailbag as well. But Alicia, we got a lot to get to talking about the USC San Jose State game. So let's take a quick break and then get into that stuff, shall we? All right, let's talk about it. USC wins over San Jose State 56-28. Week 0, the Trojans are 1-0. I believe this is, it was listed on the post-game show, 17 straight home wins for USC in the season opener, dating back to, I think it's Kansas State was the most recent loss in 2001 at home. It's been a couple days. We obviously talked about it a lot in the CarCast, the highs and the lows of it. The highs, of course, the 56 points. The lows, the 28 points allowed. It's sort of funny how the scoreline kind of dictates things there. The Trojans go into this season knowing that they need to improve on the defense, but ultimately still surrender a lot of points. Alicia, it's been a couple days. What has your thought process been the last 48 hours?
I didn't rewatch the game in full. I ended up watching several compilation videos that I found on YouTube. I do like to watch the like Pac-12 in 60, sort of the longer cut of it.
Yeah.
But it obviously we needed it ahead of a Monday recording. What I went in expecting to feel after my rewatch is not what I ended up feeling. Like I thought, and I've seen a lot of people calm down their takes about their sort of first impression of the game. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't change my opinion about the game at all on rewatch, and that does happen a lot. A lot of times, I'm a very passionate person, and I go off, and my CarCast rants are part of the fun, right? And then on Sunday, I sit and watch the game, and I think, you know what, I was being a little harsh there, or I need to sort of calm it down. It's going to be okay, all that kind of stuff. And it's not that I'm sitting here saying like it's all over, guys, like it's all over, because I wasn't saying that on Saturday night either. But the game was exactly what I thought it was on rewatch. My perception of the game was precisely what I remember it being. The players who stood out to me while watching the game were the ones that stood out to me while rewatching. And the issues that stood out to me while watching the game were the same things that stood out to me while rewatching. So I come away feeling just as good about the offense being outstanding, because that's what Lincoln Riley offenses are.
Yeah.
And just as concerned about the defense, because no, my concern level is still relatively high after giving up 28 points to San Jose State. My concern level is still high because of the way that those 28 points were scored. And I think you can talk yourself into saying like, oh, it's game one, which it absolutely is, and it's too early to tell, which it absolutely is. And they were treating it like a preseason game where they were like a scrimmage where they were, rotating in and out, which was absolutely the case.
Yeah.
But I think my biggest issue here is still that there were tactical errors, there were concentration errors, there were players being put in positions that it didn't feel like they were going to succeed from those positions. Too much was being asked of players, it seemed to me. And that is a concern to me, that I'm not necessarily willing to sit here and say, you just got to wait and see how things develop, because I've sat here and said that myself several years. And I'm just I'm out of patience on that front. I'm not willing to do it. So yeah, the defense was not encouraging, and that's sort of where I'm sitting.
Yeah, for me, I think that I'm with you. At the same time, I look at this a couple days removed, and the more I look back on it, I think that there are things where I think in the heat of the moment, you focus on maybe some of the negatives a little bit too much. In the sense that one of the things that got tweeted out yesterday, Sunday, was from Antonio Morales from The Athletic. It says, according to True Media Sports, there were 43 USC players who received 10 snaps or more on offense or defense last night. It was clear the Trojan staff wanted to see what they had with certain players. Yeah, you mentioned that, like, the preseason element of it. I think that's what a lot of it was. Now, it wasn't like an NFL style preseason game where
Like
you
some
have
players are playing the first quarter, and
like the first quarter and whatnot. I think that if it would have been sort of that situation, I think it would have been easier to find the delineation between, like, this group was performed well, this group needs to get better, and whatnot. And surely you can break down some of the subgroups there. Another tweet that we wanted to highlight on this episode was from Shotgun over at USCFootball.com, who says, "What kind of impact did Eric Gentry have on the USC defense in the season opener? Here's the 6 full drives that he played: 3 and out, 2 yards; 3 and out, 1 yard; the 2-minute TD, 4 plays, 46 yards right before the half; 3 and out, 5 yards; 3 and out, 5 yards." And then a 6-play drive for 20 yards with 1 first down. And we talked about it in the CarCast that the defense was really boom or bust, right? Like either they were holding teams to 3 and out, or holding San Jose State to 3 and out, or they were giving up touchdown drives. You kind of see like a lot of those 3 and outs were with Eric Gentry on the field. And if what happened with Eric Gentry out there, maybe instead of Tackett Curtis, the true freshman, starting in his first game, again, maybe we have a different takeaway of what the defense is. I think that it's important to sort of look at all these things. It is the first game of the year. There are guys who are, we know there's guys who are coming off of injury, like Eric Gentry, someone who missed all of spring camp. We know that there's true freshmen who started the game, like Tackett Curtis. We know that there's guys who haven't played a football game in this system yet, like Mason Cobb. There's going to be rotational things. We saw all the different dudes get in the action on the first drive of the game, like 4 plays in. They already had Elijah Hughes on the defensive line, a true freshman that I don't think that we expected to get as much run as he did, right? And he was out there literally on like the 4th play of the game. So
right.
I think all these things should allow us to have a more lenient approach with the idea of you can't we are judging this USC defense based on they need to improve from where they were last December, right? And last January. Well, it's not even September, right? It's August. Like the whole thing about college football is you get better as the season goes on. You get better at like what you are in week 1 isn't what you are in week 15, and this is week 0. Like even before then,
that's the hope, though. And again,
it is the hope.
The thing that we're always saying as a word of caution to ourselves and to our viewers and listeners is that real college football doesn't work the way that NCAA football does, or a video game, where just because you get the experience points in your bucket doesn't mean that you grow in terms of your skills.
Absolutely.
So I think that's why I'm not as willing to sit back and say that the problems that USC had last year are going to be solved through the progression of time, because the problems that USC had last year, they have added talent and still had much of the same issues. Now, I'm absolutely willing to sit back and say, like, for someone like Tackett Curtis, yeah, it's asking a lot of him to step in as a true freshman and start that game. For someone like Damani Jackson, who has been injured, serious injuries over the past few years, to go out there and get the start, like, I'm not surprised that he was at the scene of the crime on a few of those plays.
Right.
I'm not surprised.
He also missed an interception that if he snags that interception,
feel a lot different.
That's a drive that I believe San Jose State goes on to score.
Yeah.
That takes points off the
board, and everybody's feeling better. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm also not surprised that, Mason Cobb had a little bit of an up and down game. I thought he was really good in moments and clearly not in the right, not that he was out of position, but like not capable of making the play for one reason or another on several plays. Like, so I'm willing to accept that, right?
Right.
But at the same time, I think you have to be honest about this performance in the sense that, yeah, you can point to those guys, but also Kalen Bullock was at the scene of the crime, and Max Williams was at the scene of the crime, and Solomon Byrd was at the scene of the crime.
Right, and those are veteran dudes.
Sierra Wright was at the scene of the crime. Jalen Smith was at the scene of the crime. These are all guys who played most of last year at USC in this defense. So if they're also making the mistakes, again, it's early season rust. I'm willing to sort of soften the criticism a little bit on that front, but it's a concern Because if anybody on your team is going to sort of be ahead of schedule in terms of their in-season development, like, you want those guys to be the guys that are holding down the fort.
Right.
And yet when I'm, writing down my notes as I'm rewatching the game, it's like, man, I really wish I didn't have to write his name down again. Like, man, I really wish I didn't have to highlight him as like an issue, that this was part of the issue. And so it's those kinds of things that make me worry that it really is a coaching problem, a development problem within the structure of USC. And again, like, I want to make it very clear, when I am critical of individual players, unless those guys are 4-year starters in the 4th year of a system and like all of those kinds of stuff, like, the buck always stops at the coaches, because
Right.
if guys are making the same mistakes they were making last year, then the coaches didn't do a very good job of correcting the mistakes and fixing them, or the coaches didn't do a very good job of recognizing that the player was not capable of fixing the mistakes and not putting them in the firing line. So, like, that is a major concern.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you 100% of the way there. I think for me it goes back to what we talked about, where what are those mistakes? Are those mistakes on the execution side? Are those mistakes players being put in poor positions? Because those are sort of two different things. And I think the mistakes where you look at where that is a decision made by the coaching staff, the 3rd and 22, for instance, and that clip sort of went viral with a tweet from Jeff Schwartz on Sunday, and you have a different look at it from sort of like an all 22 angle, and we still feel the same way, right? Like that's a decision where SC is in a blitz. There's guys, there's blitzers. Tackett Curtis is blitzing. Mason Cobb is there at linebacker, and he's in man coverage on the running back. And that's an instance where I understand that you want to put man coverage on the running back, because you should expect on 3rd and 22, you're probably going to face a screen.
Yeah.
So I get the inclination to sort of want that idea, right? But you also have a mobile quarterback, so why don't you just drop into a zone so you can keep everything in front of you, including the running back and the quarterback potentially, and you can pivot if you need to. And so a coaching mistake like that, I think, absolutely is one of those things that you want to not see in week 1, because that shouldn't take development the same way, say, a missed tackle would. And I think that one of the bright sides for SC in this game is that the missed tackling things weren't all over the place. Like, the missed tackling was a huge issue against Utah in the Pac-12 championship game, right? Against UCLA, against Tulane, where struggles to wrap up, and suddenly a guy breaks 4 tackles and runs for a score that you could have stopped him for a 3rd down or whatever it is, right? Like, you didn't see those kind of things. I think that is something that's a little bit better. Obviously, you're not going to be the greatest tackling team. Every fan thinks their team doesn't tackle. Literally, Alabama fans hate how their team tackles too, right? Like, that is just a common thing across football. But so I look back at it, and it's like the 28 points, you got to get better and all that. With all this rotation, whatever. I honestly don't care. I want to see development in week 2. The frustrating thing is that when you look back and see the big mistakes are guys being put in places where they couldn't succeed, or it makes it very difficult for them to succeed, like running man coverage on 3rd and 22 in a blitz situation, which you shouldn't be blitzing, and putting Mason Cobb out to dry in a play which he probably executes it incorrectly on top of that. Like, those are the things that you need to not, those are the mistakes you need to not make in week 0. But
yeah, absolutely. And it's about putting your players in position to succeed.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have seen a criticism of Grinch over the last 2 days that I think is very valid is that feels like Grinch is exotic for the sake of being exotic. Like, the idea is to just go out there and throw coverages and things that make the offense, not know what's going on, try to confuse the offense, which is definitely something that you hear philosophically all the time from defensive coordinators or offensive coordinators talking about difficulties facing defenses. They talk about how or when we're previewing a team, we look at their defense and say, they do a really good job of like disguising their coverages and making it not certain what they're seeing. And then you have in the NFL something like Sam Darnold talking about how he was seeing ghosts out there and that's because the defensive coordinator is making it difficult for him to understand what the defense is doing. So there's merit in that. But it feels like Grinch either doesn't have the instinct at this point in his career for how to execute that, or he's trying to do things because some like guidebook said that he was supposed to do it instead of fitting, number one, what his players are capable of, number two, what the strengths of his players are, number three, what the context around his players are. So like, it reminds me of like the USC offensive coordinators where we talk about like T. Martin and the gumbo offense, or Graham Harrell and his flawed spread, his flawed air raid. Like, it's like you have you get the concept. Like I see what you're trying to do. You're just not that good at doing it. And it's because you're just sort of like playing dress up almost instead of being actually the thing that you're trying to be. So it's almost like USC's defense is it's the gumbo defense. Like,
you know what it reminds me of is I remember when Graham Harrell got hired and our friends over at Traveler Hates Thursdays talked to one of the SB Nation guys. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Apologies there. And they were talking about, he was a Texas guy who was talking about what it was like what defenses were like in the air raid when you have Graham Harrell there. How the game in the the Big 12 is different than in the Pac-12. And the idea was defenses completely sell out to stop the run, and they're blitz heavy because their focus is, if we can make this a shootout, we have more confidence in our offense to out execute your offense. And so all we need to do really is make one or two more stops on defense and we win the game. And I think that when you look at what Grinch and the defense talks about, and what Lincoln Riley and talks about the defense, they're not saying those things, but I think that you can look at the performances and see those things.
Yeah.
Because I think the way that this defense does play, it almost as if the simplistic view is we are playing to win a 60-minute game. And by how do you play to win a 60-minute game? You need to score more than the other team. Okay. Well, then how do you need to do that? We have an offense that we know is going to score a touchdown on 80% of our drives. And so therefore we need to not allow touchdowns on 80% of our drives. So if we can get a turnover on a quarter of those, simple math says we win the game, right? Like, just very basic. It all checks out, right? And so last year there was a comment in the chat that the missed tackles. This is from Joe in the chat, says the missed tackles were from a lot of strip attempts. And yes, in that Utah game, there were like three dudes trying to strip the ball. And
in this game on Saturday, it was the same thing after a long run.
The long run in the fourth quarter that San Jose State had, it wasn't gang tackle the guy. It was try to strip the guy, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there is that mentality of, we are going to blitz all night and force Chevin Cordero to throw an interception, or force a strip and get the turnover, because if you just add up the drives, we will score more than they will score. And I think there's that mentality there with how it plays out. I don't think that's exactly what they're trying to do in the sense of what they're saying, because if you listen to the players, I was over on YouTube last week looking at the videos from our friends over at USCFootball.com where they were interviewing the defensive players, and they were talking about, like, every drive we need to get a 3 and out. Like, that's what the goal is. They're not literally talking about we need to just Hopefully we get a turnover every quarter, so that way our drives check out to where we score more points in the end.
Right.
But it almost ends up working out
But the
that
root
way.
philosophy, I mean, the root philosophy is to get a turnover or get 3 and out every drive and have it just be over. But the root philosophy of aggression, right? Of the idea that you're blitzing and you're throwing exotic coverages to maybe bait the quarterback into making a mistake and throwing the interception, or sending Corey Foreman out into coverage, because who would expect that? That's completely unexpected.
Right.
And then DTR throws the ball right to him. Like all of those kinds of things. There's a philosophical sort of underlying thing that is 100% what you are getting at. It's the idea of, if we just create enough havoc, we will set up a situation where we will give our offense the opportunity to just outscore them, which is interesting because Andy Staples, we talked about that, the Jeff Schwartz tweet about the exotic pressure on 3rd and 22 and how it was just like, Schwartz said USC's defense would be better if they just let the front four go to work.
Yeah.
And Andy Staples replied to that tweet, "This DC isn't used to having a front four that can dominate. Didn't at OU, didn't use it when he was co-DC at Ohio State. And he had 225-pound Hercules Mataafa playing DT at Washington State. Curious to see if he knows how to let 300-pound 5-stars be 300-pound 5-stars.
But can't we go back to the idea that Hercules Mataafa was the best player in the Pac-12 on defense that year? Right?
Yes. But Hercules Mataafa at DT was necessary, where theoretically, if you took Hercules Mataafa and you put him on USC's team, you don't need to play him at DT.
Right.
You get to have Bear Alexander or Keon Bars be your DT and have Hercules Mataafa killing people off the edge, which is great. But I think it does go to sort of the philosophical idea that I know Alex Grinch has to grow out of, and I think Lincoln Riley has to grow out of, which is the idea that they can get away with the defensive philosophy of, like you said, that sort of ingrained Big 12 mentality where you aren't going to be recruiting the best defensive linemen, the 300-pounders. So
they need to trust their defensive playmakers like they trust their offensive playmakers.
Yes,
right?
Yes, trust the guys that are out there and lean on the guys that are out there to do the job that they're good at doing. And I mean, on the plus side, I suppose, is if it's the mentality issue, like it's easier to change that than to say change the personnel that USC has available to them right now.
Yeah.
But it does require understanding what it is that went wrong. And my worry is that Grinch and everybody will go back and watch film and look at it and say, well, it's not that our play calls were wrong. It's that you guys didn't execute our play calls, which is sort of the thing that we talked about with USC offensive coordinators forever. It was like play calling is always a hard thing to evaluate, because so often we justify the ends justify the means, right? Or in vice versa, where if a play goes wrong, people assume that it was a bad play call, when it could have been a perfectly acceptable play call. It's just you needed the execution. But for years, I sat there and was like, okay, yes, I understand that, but you have an offensive line that is not capable of doing what you're asking them to do it. Like, you have guards that are not capable of pulling the way that you're asking them to pull. So stop asking them to pull. It was a misunderstanding of the personnel. It was a misunderstanding of the capabilities of the offense. And everything was worse because of it. Like, we talked forever that USC was the most talented team in the Pac-12. So why were they always losing to, lesser talented teams? And it was because the lesser talented teams understood who they were and what they were, and understood, the strengths and weaknesses of their defense or of their offense or of their whatever. And I don't know that Alex Grinch understands. Like Cam Life in the chat says, play straight up. Stop overloading one side and leaving a gap, leaving running lanes wide open. Like, does Alex Grinch understand that with Bear Alexander in the middle of that defense, he can play straight up? Does he understand that? I don't think he understands that based on the Washington State game. Can he learn that? Can he grow to understand that USC's defensive front, that they can maybe lean on the front four a little bit more straight up, that they can maybe lean on their corner. Maybe they can trust their corners to just play, man to man if they need them to, or can they trust that if they go into a zone on 3rd and 22 that people are going to be in the right position and, and get the job done? I still feel like there's that's sort of not the philosophy that USC is bringing to the table. Alex Grinch is coaching like he has to outwit the other side instead of just letting his talent out-talent the other side.
Well, I mean, the flip side about this is that if the talent strictly dominated, it would cover up a lot of these things too, right? Like if the blitzes were paying off so much that these guys were winning the blitz so right off the snap, it could mask a lot of these things, right? Like if Tackett Curtis gets home immediately on 3rd and 22, we're talking about like, oh wow, he was like you have the result bias of, well, they got home and they covered up these things. It's right, like last year with the turnovers, right?
But that's part of the problem though, because like that 3rd and 22, they crashed that right side of the line and absolutely overwhelmed the pocket.
Right.
But in doing so, gave Cordero the green light to just take off. Like, there's something to the idea that you can be too good at getting the pressure in, but if nobody, if the quarterback is alive to it and understands that he needs to move,
you got to understand the second wave and how it could break down, because you go back and watch that play from the end zone shot, and they get in and Cordero has to escape to his left. Well, if Mason Cobb didn't go to his left, which is Cordero's right, he's in position to potentially make the tackle, or at least take away the running lane to where it's not 28 yards worth, right? Like,
but also if you're in a zone, you have somebody there able to cover that play.
If you're going to blitz part of the dudes, put the other ones in the zone to cover them up, right?
That's all I'm saying. Like, it's just one of those things where you can keep it more simple and just let your athletes athlete. And I think that's the frustrating thing that we're seeing is, last year I don't know that USC had enough of the athletes to athlete. It feels like now you kind of do. And then from that point,
you still need to put them in a position to succeed.
But then
on top of that,
then instead of maybe spending as much time teaching them the concept behind an inverted cover 2 and all this kind of stuff that is all that, maybe you spend more time like in Solomon Bird's ear saying, hey, I know you want to pin your ear back and get to the quarterback, but also like you need to hold your edge. You need to be conscious of where the quarterback can escape. And guess what? USC would have had a bunch of sacks in that game if dudes on the edges had just been a little bit more patient and let Cordero come to them. Like to a certain point, you have to teach that to your guys. And that was an issue last year. It's been an issue for a long time. So it's just one of those things where maybe spend less time on the complicated concepts and more time on the individual positional like skills and tactics. I don't know.
Yeah, and there's conversation in the chat about Tackett Curtis his age, and
Tackett Curtis was a true freshman making a start in his first collegiate appearance. Of course he had busts.
But here's the thing. It doesn't matter what his age is. It's his first game. He's allowed to make a mistake in his first game. Like I don't think anyone is needs to be overly critical about Tackett Curtis, especially on essentially his second drive of the game, right? Like he's allowed to not be like not look like the second coming of Ray Lewis in his first game, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think that anyone's being overly critical to the point that with Tackett Curtis there. I think the critical nature of the 3rd and 22 play comes on the play call more than anything. It's not about the individual thing. I think that if there's any player, I think that maybe should get some sort of criticism. It's how Mason Cobb sort of went to his left when he probably should have stayed central, but even that's nitpicky. He shouldn't have been on him in man coverage anyway.
I think the Tackett Curtis criticism is.
We're also
more
talking
broad.
about a drive.
We're not talking about those single play though. Like Tackett Curtis had a bunch of busts. Like that's that
but
happened.
He's allowed to in his first game.
I mean, Solomon Byrd had a bunch of really questionable plays.
Right.
Mason Cobb had a bunch of really questionable plays. Damani Jackson, Sierra Wright, Max Williams, etc. Like there were a lot of guys who had. Who had issues. The one I am worried the least about certainly is Tackett Curtis, especially because, as we talked about with the Eric Gentry of it all, like I think this was maybe a good example of how, Tackett is a talent that you want to bring through, but it's probably asking too much of him to have him be the number one guy on day one. Ideally, I think over the next few weeks, you'll develop a linebacker partnership between Mason Cobb and Eric Gentry and have Tackett be, the third guy who you're putting in there to get reps and all that kind of stuff, with Gentry and Cobb being your primary linebackers until Tackett proves that he's ready to take that next step, which could ideally would be this year. But also if he doesn't take that next step until next year, that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got a bunch of stuff to get to with over under. So let's hit the over under, shall we?
So you're going over. I'm feeling bold. Give me that over.
I'll go under. I got to take an under here. I got 3 unders to take.
I'm going to do an under here.
All right. Let's get into the over under. Alicia, you and I, the way this works, we each pick 3 over unders. We set the lines. The other person, if I set the line, you make your pick. If you set the line, I make my pick, and we go from there, and we compete against each other, and then the RotBots compete as well. So let's walk through the results of week 1. The first over-under was over-under points. You said over-under 14.5 points for San Jose State. It was 28 points. The Spartans scored 28 points, which is an over that I get to claim there. Over
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was a poor, sweet summer child when I said that.
It's a line that I think is more than fair. SC gave up more than they should have, but at the same time, 14 was always going to be a tough one in a week 0 game. Anything can happen with those. Let's go to the next one. Let's see. It was passing yards, 249.5. Caleb Williams passing yards. I believe you took the over, and it was over. It was 278.
Yeah.
76 of those came on one play.
And 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
In a quiet performance from the Heisman winner.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to the next one. Tight end touches. You said 1.5. I took the over on that, and it was the over. It was 3 catches for Lake McCree in week 0 against San Jose State.
Whenever I do the tight end things, I'm happy to be wrong. Like if I'm going to get an over under wrong or miss the line because the tight end's got more touches, that's fine.
Let's go to the next one after that, which I set the line at 6.5 tackles for Mason Cobb. It ended up being under. It was 6, which is not what you took, which locks me into the win there. I get the win as you take the over.
That was a good line.
He was second on the team in tackles. First on the team was Jalen Smith, who had 8.
Mm-hmm. Mason Cobb had two tackles for loss. I I thought Cobb had a promising game. Obviously,
I thought so too.
There were moments where you could certainly highlight that he either messed up or wasn't capable. If you could give him some of Zachariah Branch's speed to close down horizontally, then that would be East-West would be much improved. But I thought it was a promising start for him.
Yeah, for
He
sure.
certainly goes out there and hits.
Let's go to the next one. Over under 3.5 sacks. I don't know why I took the over on this because it was way under. It wasn't 0.5. It was half a sack. Barry Alexander got half a sack credited to his name. He shared it with Solomon Byrd. I thought Solomon Byrd got the whole sack, but it ended up being half for Byrd, half for Bear. You love a Bear-Byrd sack, like two ferocious animals coming together to get the quarterback, the Bear and the Bird. That was all the SC got.
Like I said, there would have been opportunities to get sacks if some of USC's defensive linemen, particularly their edge guys like Jamal Muhammad, Anthony Lucas, those guys, if they had just been a little bit more patient and let Cordero come to them in those running lanes that he was making it through, there were sack opportunities that they were just they got crowded out, got behind him, and then there's nothing you can do. So.
All right, let's go to attendance. I set the line at 62,500. You took the over. It was over. The attendance was 63,411 announced paid attendance.
Yeah.
Sure.
At least it was the over.
It was 3,300 more than the Rice game last year. Which, if you'd have told me 3,000 people more than the Rice game, I'm like, yeah, that sounds right. So
but
again, this is based on paid
the
attendance.
Returning Heisman winner.
Oh, I agree.
Are number 6 nationally.
There were way too many empty seats for my liking, but I realized that
it's also
my standard is unrealistic.
Yeah, I don't know.
Even though I would argue my standard is not unrealistic, SC literally sold out the Coliseum to 90,000 people for Hawaii in 2012.
That's yes.
They didn't have the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, and they didn't have Lincoln Riley as the head coach in 2012. I get that they were the preseason number 1 team. I get that part of it.
But is that so far off from being number 6 and very much a favorite?
And having the Heisman Trophy winner and Lincoln Riley and all the positive vibes coming into this season? No, it's not different.
Yeah.
It really isn't. Like, if you had 90,000 for Hawaii and every seat taken, you should... The 63,000 is fine, but like it should look like 63,000. It didn't look like 63,000 either. But again, I realize my standard different than the standard LA standard, and I'm just a crazy person. I get it.
But this is also one of the things that we talked about during the Clay Helton era is I understood why they were conservative in their approach to whether or not to end that era in any, 2018 or anything like that. But the decision to continue with Clay Helton in 2018 eroded greatly the faith that the Los Angeles sports community and interest that that community had in USC football. And rebuilding it is clearly taking time.
Apparently. Let's get to the results. I went 3-3. You went 3-3. So we're tied after 1 week of over-under. There were 11 people, 11 Rotbots, who had perfect 6-0 records. Big shout out to
wild.
Aaron from Madison. The artist formerly known as Jabroni Jabber Brody went 6-0. Adam and Clinton Pittsburgh, the champion from the 2021 season, went perfect 6-0. Jordan from Canada went 6-0. Rourke went 6-0. Scott Cox, the awesome tier. Trinice on the west side went 6-0. Vince in San Diego. P. Hamblin 55 went 6-0. And Pickle went 6-0.
Y'all are good.
Yeah.
Y'all are good.
Big shout out to everyone having a strong game there. Of course, the Vegas spread was 30.5 for the Trojans. SC wins by 28. Bill Connolly's S&P Plus projections was SC by 34.5. SC was basically a touchdown off of that. Your score prediction was 50-9. Mine was 55-17. I was one off on USC's output, but a fair bit off on San Jose State's, which we both were. So,
yeah,
shrug.
Yeah, watch me predict Nevada to score 28 points just for some reverse psychology going into Saturday.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's get into the mailbag, shall we?
You've got mail.
All right, we got a bunch of questions here in the chats. We also got an email from Tony in Denora, PA, who says, Michael and Alicia, this is Tony from Denora, PA. I didn't get to see your CarCast on Saturday. I believe you guys started at 2 East Coast time. I'm usually up watching the end of the West Coast games, but there were no games in week 0, so I dozed off. I'll check it out today or tomorrow. Now on to the game. It was a good win. Caleb had a good game, and Zach is going to be a beast. The things I'm concerned about, I thought the O-line struggled a lot last night. Many mistakes in the first half on both sides of the ball. The last offensive and defensive series of the first half were bad. Caleb cannot take a sack in that situation. We can't give up a touchdown like that in the closing seconds. I was watching the Pac-12 post-game show, and they mentioned that Grinch is having these guys think too much out there instead of just reacting. I'm not going to overreact after the first game, so let's go back to practice and make some adjustments for Nevada. Fight on. Alicia, I think Tony brings up a great point on the half situation. Because, yes, the last offensive drive was bad for USC. They go 3 and outs. Caleb Williams takes a sack. It completely flips the field. It gives San Jose State the short field, the one which they hit the long pass to score right before the half. And this, to me, just underscores the value of the middle 8, right? You have to win the middle 8. The last 4 minutes of the first half, the first 4 minutes of the second half. Ideally, you want to bookend the half with scores of your own. You can really take advantage of having back-to-back drives or at least back-to-back positive outcomes of drives to take control of games. SC was in a tie game, 7-7. They come back with 2 straight touchdowns, and they hold San Jose State to 2 straight 3 and outs to go up 21-7 in this game. At that point, if they kill out the clock going into the half, and they go into the half 21-7, shrug, fine, whatever. You at least have the momentum on your side. You've forced 2 straight 3 and outs, and even if you don't score right before the half, you at least have scored the last 2 touchdowns. You're feeling good about yourself. You're up double digits going into the half. Good, thumbs up, right? If they score on that last drive and they put together a 90-second drill, and they come down the field and they score right before the half, and they go up 28-7, and they score with 8 seconds left, and then they go into the half up 28-7, the game is over. Yeah. You have killed off the game. San Jose State's spirit is dead. You go into the half feeling like things are completely different. Maybe the plan there is to get Caleb Williams maybe 1 or 2 drives in the third quarter. You can get him out. You can start thinking about when you're going to bring in Miller Moss. The entire game changes, especially if you can come out in the second half and score on that first drive. We know that SC was getting the ball at the start of the second half. So if they do come out in the first drive of the second half and they come out with the score 35-7, suddenly it's a situation where, yeah, you can start looking at Miller Moss to get in here early. It's week 0. You're treating it as a preseason game with all this rotation. You might as well let Caleb Williams off the hook for the rest of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no, they do struggle to get anything on that drive, and they go 3 and out on offense before the half. They give up the score, and now it's 21-14, and now you're in a dogfight. Now you're in a situation where on paper, it looks like Caleb Williams has to be in until the fourth quarter, and he was.
Well, guess what? Guess what happens? In the third quarter, USC ends up with a 4th and 3 with the game at 21-14 that they have to convert in order to make things feel like USC goes for the 4th and 3. I in my notes, I highlighted as an underrated play. 4th and 3, 21-14, third quarter. Caleb Williams hits Mario Williams up the seam. If that play doesn't go off and USC turns the ball over at midfield and gives San Jose State the ball with a chance to tie the game,
sweaty palms.
Very, very sweaty. Very sweaty. So, yes,
Yeah.
it does matter, like you said, the middle 8.
Yeah. Joe in the chat says with the new accelerated game clock, we lost about 2 more drives. Yeah.
And got 2 more commercial breaks.
Exactly. Yeah, you lose drives, which means everyone is that much more important. Luckily for the Trojans, they have the best offense in the world. They are going to take advantage of most of these situations. It's hard to be critical about one 3 and out that SC has in the second quarter.
But it's the timing of that 3. I think
it's the timing.
It's the time. I think you are very correct to be critical of the timing of that 3 and out because it's nitpicky, this offense but when you are in a situation where you are going to, it's the timing of the 3 of the in the Cotton Bowl. It's the timing of when USC's offense doesn't score the touchdown. Like, that's the key thing. So, it's holding USC's offense to an extremely high standard, but the defense forces you to have that high standard for the offense because.
And I always think of the UCLA Oregon game last year. If you watch that game, it was fascinating because both teams are going back and forth with touchdown drives. But in the middle of it, they're going back and forth. I just pulled it up. It's 10-10. It's 3-3. It's 10-10. Oregon goes up 17-10. They get a stop. They force UCLA to a field goal. They score right before the half. And wasn't there an onside kick or something in there too? And suddenly they're up 31-13 at the half. And it's like, hold on, you were just going tit for tat. Like, how did this happen? Right? Yeah. Like you get an extra drive in there, you get a turnover, you force a stop, you go for an onside kick, whatever that ends up being. And suddenly things can just snowball around the middle 8. And suddenly you're in, big time control of a game that maybe you aren't worthy of, but that's fine because you are, right? You've created that for yourself. So, and in SC situation, them being more talented than San Jose State, they sort of would have been worthy of that just based on the skill gap. So, let's go to a question from Tim. So Friday we were undisputed national champs, and Sunday we'll be lucky to win 7 games. What's the actual rational take? I think the actual rational take is it was week 0. I think you slow down and wait, even though I know the past USC trauma of like, well, it was week 0. It was just Western Michigan. Let's just hold on and slow it down and see how things go. Makes it hard. But again, remember that this is a different coaching staff than before.
I think the rational take is USC won 11-1 last season with a defense that gave up 29 points per game.
Yeah.
Would it be as likely for them to do that again this year with the arguably more difficult schedule? Not, but the defense is going to be what it is. It's
right.
I think the rational take is to just enjoy the ride so long as you can enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's definitely more than fair. Looking back at it, 2019. Oklahoma's first game was against Houston. They won 49-31. They gave up 31 points to Houston. Mind you, Houston's a pretty good team. So maybe that's not the best comparison there. But they've given up points early on. And we know that Lincoln Riley has only ever had a team that is a one-loss team in every regular season that he's had, with the exception of 2020, the only other year in which he didn't have 2020 and 2021, both were 2-loss teams.
The fact of the matter is, it is extremely difficult to outpace this USC offense, and it will be for every team. I know that the defense makes us all worry about the Notre Dame, Utah, Oregon, Washington, UCLA of it all, but even those teams will have a very difficult time of outpacing this USC offense.
Cameron says, is the wide receiver core for USC better than Ohio State's receiving core after week 0? And also go El Segundo, Little League World Champs. Yeah, hell of a win for El Segundo. They're named the second, but really they're the first after that one, I would say. The walk-off shot. Can you imagine hitting a walk-off pumpy to win the World Series like that. Not just the U.S. championship, which we all know is like whatever. It's truly the World Series, like to win it on a walk-off fashion. I'm almost sad for the kid. He's like 12, and
No,
like
no.
he'll never top that in his life.
Absolutely not.
You know what I mean? Like it's incredible. But wide receiver core, clearly SC's is better. No other team is better. Ohio State hasn't even played yet. 0 catches on the season.
Zachariah Branch. Sorry, we learned after we recorded the CarCast that he prefers to be referred to as Zachariah. Which
shame on me, by the way. I said like
married,
Zach Branch like 9 times in the CarCast, and
as a person married to a Michael who does not like being called Mike, we will respect Zachariah Branch's wishes on
true.
this.
Yeah.
Zachariah Branch puts USC a hell of a lot closer to the argument with Ohio State. The problem is Ohio State's top end talent at wide receiver is really, really ridiculous. USC is as close as anybody's going to come, I think, to being able to say that they can go toe to toe with that wide receiver core, pound for pound. But yeah,
those are the 2 best receiving cores in the country, hands down. I don't think anybody else is on that level. The good news is I don't think it matters if you're 1 or 2.
No,
if you're that good. Like
you're that good. Yeah.
If you're in the tier, you're in the tier.
Yeah.
Right. Like, SC is loaded at wide receiver. That's the most important part. Absolutely. Let's go to a comment that LA Fred had. Said, with all the criticism of the defense, FYI, last year SC allowed 2.8 points per drive. San Jose State averaged 2.1 points per drive. Just perspective from last year. Yes, I hear you. The caveat to this is USC did that over the course of the whole season
while playing teams like Utah and UCLA. And
yes. And San Jose State, even though Chevin Cordero, I think, is a perfectly good, experienced quarterback who is not going to make a lot of mistakes. He made 1 mistake in this game that was a pick that didn't even cost him because it was dropped. He still is probably the 8th or 9th best quarterback USC will face on the schedule. So there's better offenses to be played.
Yes.
Yeah. David Orange County. Hey, Rotbots, episode 499. Wow, congrats, Alicia and Michael. You don't look a day over episode 222.
It's wild. It's wild. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. The weird thing is the episode count has like really crawled. I was looking at something recently, and like as recently as like 3 seasons ago, we were like already in the episode 400s or something like that. Like it really is sort of slowed down. Because I think we count the episode titles differently than maybe originally.
We've done off seasons where we've still done 2 episodes a week, though.
Yeah, and,
where this off
and we don't do that anymore.
We now drop down to 1 episode a week. So
yeah, 100%. Funny on MC says I think the COVID lockdown made people lazy to attend games.
Yes, and this is one of the things that I always talk about when the question of like sports league strikes and that kind of thing, like when it's possible that a season will not happen because of labor disputes or whatever it is. Like the dangerous thing that leagues and players and everybody involved always needs to consider is that if you let people find out that they can live without a thing, that's bad. And it's partly the COVID lockdown. It's partly the COVID season where there were no fans in the stands. It's partly the Clay Helton of it all, where people just stopped enjoying games, and so they stopped going to games, and then realized that like, oh, if I don't pay attention to USC football, then my Saturdays are free.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to deal with this, that, and the other. Like,
there's also the economic side.
The economics, all of this kind of stuff. Yeah, you're not spending the money, all that kind of stuff. So like, if you are a sports league or a sports team, never let people realize that they can indeed live without you. And I say that as a massive sports fan who loves USC, who loves sports, all that kind of thing. But like realistically, as much as I couldn't dream of a September without USC football. In 2020, I found out that the world kept going on and my life kept going on in September of 2020 without USC football. Like, I mean, to a point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I also think that like we're in a world where do you even remember that baseball had a strike last year?
No.
Right.
I do because
I think that yes, I think that fans remember these things. At the same time, I think that we also move on from these things quickly.
Yes, no,
And-
absolutely, but it just is sort of it's a thing where, you know, you reduced the number of seats in the Coliseum, which meant you had people who decided not to re-up their season tickets because doing so would have required them to pay a fee or all that, like a seat, you know, the seating fee or all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And when they decided to do that, they might have initially thought like, well, I'll just buy tickets, you know, on a week-to-week basis. And then they don't buy tickets on a week-to-week basis because, as Malcolm in the chat says, live sports are mad expensive. And the economy makes, you know, your dollar doesn't go as far, you know, today as it did 5 years ago. And all that, like all of these things.
And yeah, shout out to Irvine Cattle Ranch. There was a lockout, not a strike.
Yeah, that's right. Lockout strike. I mean, again, it's the verbiage. It's which side is causing the games to not be played.
In actuality, it's also which side wants to have the upper hand.
For what? Yeah.
Yes, you can put it as a lockout and end up looking like the strong man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that there are the criticisms of the Coliseum. I fully get that part.
I like the renovation, and
so do I.
I think it looks great.
I think so too. I also think that like if the Coliseum was renovated 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago during the Pete Carroll stuff, does that change things there? I don't know that it completely does. I think more than anything is the product at home is very good in terms of the home experience is very good. There's a lot of people, you talk about your dad all the time, that likes to watch games at home instead. And so I think the reality is the people who were going to games in the Pete Carroll era, who would have been there in 2012 for that opener against Hawaii, when you add the little factors, which is the TV experience is better than it's ever been, and games are just a little bit more expensive, parking's a little bit harder to come by, all these little factors adds up. And you also add in that whoever this imaginary person is maybe older, maybe they have kids now, maybe they have whatever these things are. It could make it more likely for them to not come. But this is where I push back on the idea of there's 15 million people within like a 2-hour drive.
Yes.
So for every one of those people, there's a person who was 12 years old in 2012 and now has, you know, discretionary funds to be able to buy the ticket. So,
yeah.
I don't
know. We're also talking about a generation of students who didn't have a ton of interest in the football team because the football team
wasn't that always weird. You go to before I went to SC, I thought that every single student was this rabid fan. And then you go to SC as a student,
like people don't
and
care.
then you realize that like in this class I'm in, maybe 20% know the quarterback's name.
Yeah. But also,
which is weird.
But again,
then it makes sense. You're at a university. Not everybody is this.
Yeah, but the team also has to give people a reason to go. Like for instance, my first year going to USC games as a student, we had to get there 4 hours before the game in order to get seats. To get not great seats, by the way.
Right.
You know, just a few years later, I could turn up 15 minutes before the game and get seats I couldn't have dreamed of getting. That first year. So like again, it's about the general interest and everything like that. And then you have like all of those people graduated. Do they have the liquid cash to put into going to USC games in the current economy? Maybe not. Do they have the interest that was built during their days as students? Definitely not. Like, you know, there's a lot of factors.
Yeah. For sure. I just wish that people didn't have the ammo of taking the picture that gets tweeted out from the press box of all the empty seats.
Yeah.
And then
But I'm done
going to
defending.
Twitter and jerking off about it, about, Lincoln Riley gone to the Mecca and he makes bad barbecue and
I'm done defending USC fans and attendance. The only thing I will defend USC about is that stupid tweet picture that's going around of like, look at the section 303 obstructed view where you can't even see the field. Like, bruh, they don't sell those tickets. Go on StubHub. That section is not available. Like, it's very transparent what you are doing, but that's fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
That's just an annoyance over people actively like spreading misinformation.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying people make bad faith arguments on social media?
People on Twitter take pictures that are maybe not the most truthful. Yeah.
Remember, Murdy says, besides Zachariah, what are you most pleasantly surprised about?
Marshawn Lloyd. When I talked about doing my rewatch and being impressed by the players that I was impressed with on initial watch, I was impressed with Marshawn Lloyd. I was even more impressed with him looking back, going back over it. That dude, that I wrote in my notes somewhere that he's like one of those metal balls in one of those pendulum swings where you see the ball hit the other one and you just like see the energy transfer from the ball that got hit to the other one. Like, he gets hit and you see the energy transfer back into the defender. You see the energy transfer into the next defender who's in, like, it's incredible. I'm so excited to see him just eat this year, and knocking on all wood, because at South Carolina, it was never a question of his talent. He had a lot of injury issues. So just like wrap him up in cotton and bubble wrap and everything you can do, put him in a bubble or anything like that to keep him from getting injured, because I want to see him have a full healthy season, and I think he's going to do incredible things.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a good pull. I think another guy that I was pleasantly surprised about on defense was the collection of the young talent. I think on the defensive line, I think that
Bear Alexander
to the Bear looked good. I thought Anthony Lucas in the first play got to run stuff. He had his moments. I thought, Solomon Byrd with that sack that he teamed up with Bear Alexander with. Like,
Bear Alexander, I don't want to get ahead of myself because he is very young. He is not the finished article yet. There is clearly parts of his game that he needs to build up and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not fair to compare him to somebody who, when he arrived at USC, was a full-grown man who transformed a USC defense. I actually think this is a case of optimistic, Alicia. But Bear Alexander could be the kind of physical presence in the middle for USC that Stevie T was.
Okay. All right.
Just saying. You think I'm crazy?
No, I kind of expect, and maybe this changes. Maybe this will be more so on offense than defense. And maybe this is just because, we just need to see it shake out more. I kind of expect there's just going to be a lot of rotation, especially early on, that I don't know that we get to a point where we can sit here and say that there is a guy who's going to have 60 snaps on the defensive line.
And I don't think Bear Alexander is capable of doing that yet.
And yeah, maybe 60 is extreme. 50, yeah. You know what I mean?
No,
right?
no, I know what you mean, and that's sort of why I said, like, I don't know that you can lean on Bear Alexander quite that much yet, but just the size and the power and the just bowling people over, like
Malcolm in the chat says Bear's ceiling is mad higher than CBT's.
Yes, absolutely.
His ceiling but I think when you're talking about impact,
having a player of that capability in the center of your defense makes life easier for literally everybody.
Stevie T's value was more than his production, right?
Yes.
Like, his value was more than the player that he was. And that's not to take anything away from the player that he was, right? Like the value is, your value can fluctuate, right? Like,
Yeah.
on the flip side of this, you have a million great receivers, right? In terms of value to the team, that lowers the value of the team that all those individual talents are. In just a mathematical sense, like that, it sounds
No, my
wrong, but
broader
like
point
just
is
it makes sense,
the
right?
2016 defense is half of what it was if it does not have CBT anchoring the line.
Yeah.
You need to have an anchor in your defense, and USC has not had a nose tackle or interior defensive lineman capable of anchoring the defense in that way.
Yeah.
Since Stevie Tuikolawatu left.
I thought you were going to say George Ugo.
Well, I mean, that's the kind of player that you need, though. And USC's been searching for that guy for a long time and has not had them. And
yeah,
I'm not trying to get ahead of myself on Bear Alexander, but like that's the defensive interior defensive presence that USC has been missing.
Yeah, for sure. All right, SC and Nevada are coming up on Saturday. We will preview that on Wednesday. This will be all that we've discussed about San Jose State. As always, you can email us, rantoftroy@fanside.com. You can give us a phone number or a phone call over at the Rant Line, 818-643-7227. Suck it, What's Bruin Show. Jake gave us a long call. I was going to play it, but still a long, angry call from our friend Jake. I should have got it ready to play it at the end here. Mostly just upset that we didn't say Suck It, What's Bruin Show.
It's hard because I need to remember the number. Like I can. It's not one USC anymore. It's not as easy. It's 7227. So I need to hit the mark.
818-643-7227. Suck It, What's Bruin Show. Yeah. Something about the whole like little brother complex. It's like they just want to be slandered on the internet, I guess. So all right. We love you guys. Thanks for joining us as always. If you join us here on YouTube, we appreciate you. Be sure to like the video. Hit the like button. That helps us grow the show. That's super important to us as we continue to sort of do our thing, and we'll appreciate the love. Be sure to give us your review over on Apple Podcasts as well. You can also join us, become a member for $4.99. You get all of our bonus content, including Thursday night late night streams that we're putting out. Rant and Troy After Dark every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Members only videos on YouTube that we're super pumped about, that include the ability to call in. You can call in and be a caller. It'll be fun. Live. It's like calling to the Rant Line, but it's live. So you can rant with us and talk to us about your day or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. It's your show. Take the thing over.
Give us your Alex Grinch rant.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, you can do that by joining us live here on YouTube for our members only shows. But we'll be back Wednesday for a show for everybody to join us. Wednesday, 5 p.m. looking at USC and Nevada, which will play on Saturday night. Until then, we will see ya. See ya.
See ya.
See ya.